What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today, guys, we're doing one of our big tow reviews. We are towing the same 13,000 pound fifth wheel, so stay tuned, guys. Before we get started, don't forget to smash that subscribe button, give this video a big thumbs up. What do you guys think of the upgrades that have happened? There's not many, but what do you think of them? I think some of the tuning stuff will actually really surprise you guys, and then we'll get into plans for maybe later this year, because I think I'm going to be towing one more time this year. Okay, first, guys, I'm going to go in, and now I have towed into up to 101 degree temperatures on this trip. This has been a lot of towing in the last week. Currently, we're sitting much lower, just 79 degrees, so nothing crazy at this point in time. But to get into temperatures, first we'll go boost. In factory form, I don't think I've seen more than 25 to 26 PSI. It doesn't need to boost high, and boosting high is not necessarily a metric of absolute power, meaning if you boost to 100 PSI of boost, it's a measure of resistance. It's not technically indicative of overall performance. It's a helpful metric to have and understand, but a lot of people think more boost equals more power. That's not necessarily it. We'll get into parasitic loss in a different video. That's not this one today, but just understand it's not necessarily indicative of power. Exhaust temps, I never saw anything super crazy. Right now I'm just on a 55 mile an hour stretch of road. We're 900 to 1,000. It's a little bit of a hill now, so we're a little over 1,100. Nothing crazy. I've seen over 12 to 13, but very short duration. It came back down, nothing to worry. So in the scheme of engine vitals, pretty unexciting stuff, which is a good thing. We don't want exciting. Transmission temp continues to be a weird one for me. 203. That's not this truck specifically. It's this design of the 6R. I don't know if this is something that's different when you get into the 10R, but the 6R, I think the 10 speed's the 10R. I'd have to double check. Don't hold me to that one. I made a complete assumption. So 200, I think 205 was the highest I saw from the transmission temp fluid, which again is normal for this design. I would like to improve that in the future. I don't know when I'll do that, but it is on the to-do list to improve that and try to bring that down a little bit. It's not going to hurt it any. It's fine. These trucks just run the transmission fluid hotter for some reason. You won't be grenading it. It's okay. Engine coolant temp, right now we're just 195. I've seen it again. I think the highest I saw was 210-ish. But for a very short duration, nothing crazy. An engine coolant temp, typically within 15 to 20 degrees of whatever my coolant temp for the oil. So right now we're 208 and my coolant temp just dropped to 190, so 18 degree delta. Completely okay. Towing, I am going down a hill, so both of those will probably start dropping. But nothing super exciting. I did start measuring fuel rail pressure. That is, it peaks around 29.2. I believe that's thousands PSI, so it's measured kPSI, so keep that in perspective. Double check that. But yeah, I'm very happy with that. With tuning, I think a lot of people will be interested to hear this. Boost only went up to about 28. I never saw higher than 28 PSI with the SET tow tune. You guys will see as we talk more in this section, you guys will see I didn't like the SET tow tune because we are going to go into this next metric. I keep my DPF load percentage up. And when I'm running a factory tune, so no modification tune, and I actually, while towing, I tend to see this drop. Every now and then it'll start to rise, or I might hit a like forced regen. There's only so many miles before the computer forces a regen. But I started this trip at 31%. I'm down to 25. I do think I saw 24, so it might be building up a little bit. The point is, pretty infrequent regens on this. I know I made the whole better part of 300 miles home, and it never regened on the truck. So The reason this is important, I put in the SCT tow tune. This is one of my biggest critiques. So I did notice that I just got worse fuel economy, which it happens. I'm not necessarily mad. It was annoying, but it is just kind of part of it. So no harm, no foul. But I was hitting a regen. I started tracking them literally like every 70, sometimes even less. I want to say every 60 to 80 miles, I'd hit a regen. So it built up the DPF load much, much faster. And those of you guys that have driven and towed with these trucks, when you hit a regen, especially towing this kind of weight, it destroys what little fuel economy we have. And these have incredibly small tanks. They're only 26-gallon tanks. Your best case scenario is if you're able to squeak out 10 miles per gallon, you still only have a 260-mile range, and that's best case. Honest, and you're going to be real low if you're over 200. There was one tank I went over 200 miles, and it took me pretty low. I don't like running my fuel tank that low. I was only at like 5 gallons in the tank. I think I put like 21 gallons in. Stay tuned for the end where I talk about how we're addressing that. With the SCT tow tune, literally all my other parameters completely unchanged. There was no difference in any other metric at all. I'm going to do a separate video reviewing the SCT tow tune, but I just want to throw that in here because this is going to be the big video talking about the towing performance of the truck. So I actually switched back to factory for the last part of this trip just to kind of gauge where I'm at. I'm 90 miles into the trip, and I haven't hit a regen yet, and I'm nowhere near hitting one. So it does go to show the SCT tow tune was pushing regens much faster. I think it was not clogging, I think it was building up soot much faster. I know it's still a good device and a lot of people do custom tuning off of it. I'm not getting rid of it. I plan to look into emissions-friendly tuning. I think that's going to be what most people are interested in hearing about when they're looking to push this performance of this truck. So I'm going to stick with that for this build. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of modifications that are going to happen. It's just going to be emissions friendly and seeing how much we can pull out of the truck without getting ourselves in any trouble either. It is upsetting I have to worry about that. I wish I didn't have to, but the truth is, you do, and it's getting harder and harder. So I think this will become a bigger market that people look at to invest in and work within. So stay tuned because we are going to do a lot of cool stuff with the truck regardless of the fact that we can't do any of the really fun stuff. So just stay tuned and trust me, guys, have a little bit of faith. Other than that, guys, the truck performed really well. I've been very happy overall with the truck and what I've done. I will say there's a couple modifications that had to come off. The SCT tow tune was one, and the air filter was triggering a check engine light, which significantly decreased my throttle response on the truck. It went into like a semi-limp mode, and it was terrible. But we did try those 2 mods. It didn't work out. We took them off for the rest of the trip. I towed down and back to South Carolina with the factory intake and a clean new filter. And, here we are. So things are going well otherwise. I was a little upset because I liked those upgrades, and I'm going to look into how to make them happen in the future. But it does look like there's some minor hiccups per se. Those will get their own videos dedicated because it's a slightly bigger topic than I'm going to talk about here. So since 2 of my main upgrades failed me, what did we end up doing? So we ended up doing the cold side intercooler pipe. It held perfect. It's holding boost. 0 complaints there, other than you guys know from the video what I don't like. And from a strictly towing perspective, the only other upgrade, we put airbags on. And I got to tell you, man, I love them. It is a little weird. This just has 250 springs on it. My other truck has a heavier duty leaf pack. Heavier duty. Ugh. Speak English, Jared. My other truck has a beefed up rear suspension and airbags on top of it. so it's hard to give an apples to apples comparison. But I will say I am running more PSI in these airbags from Airlift to get a similar effect. But I will say airbags are an absolute must. I actually have 50 PSI in them right now, which I think is way too much.
Continue for 74 miles.
Thank you. So I think that's a little much, and I can tell there's a little pushback, but it was the lowest weight that leveled my truck. These rear springs are just not really meant to deal with this type of load. They ride much nicer. So I do need to rectify that, and I want to do it without changing the driving characteristics. So what's likely going to happen is I do believe I'm going to add a slightly thicker block in the rear. This will give me the height I need. It will allow me to kind of do my airbags however I feel like, as opposed to really trying to stick to what it is the level of the truck. Because I do think 30 PSI, 35 is probably a little better for this load. Although 50 is not terrible. Every now and then, like I'm about to hit a bump here, I do feel like it's something I got to play with. The air compressor should be installed in time for me to do that the next time I tow, so stay tuned. But airbags are an absolute must. I love them. It's my favorite towing modification. It is one of 3 things I really wanted done for this trip. The other one was the cold side pipe, and the other one, again, we'll talk about at the end, but that was my fuel tank that I don't know if it's still in shipping or not. Now, I want to talk about an upgrade I wanted to do and something I've been looking at doing, just haven't, but I did it last minute. I will get a video going of this and how to do it because it's really cool. I put a new head unit in. Those of you guys that have been following, this is an XLT that had no upgrades. So it had a CD player in here. It didn't have a touch screen, no nav, none of that. What we did is we went with a JVC touchscreen unit with Android Auto. I wired it up. My controls work for everything. I have Google Assist. I just hit my little talk button. It is a really, really cool way of doing things, and I love how well it works with everything here. Truly a feature that you don't see until the much newer Fords in the Super Duties, I think. Well, I shouldn't say much newer. I guess it's like, I think it's 17 got the next gen head units. I forget. But it's a much newer feature to have Android Auto and such. We're still getting everything integrated in. I'm going to show everyone how I have it set up, but I just have to say, one of my absolute favorite upgrades I've done. I'm so happy with it. It came out great. I can just talk to Google and I can add stuff or tell it where I want to go, or to add a sheet stop in there for fuel, whatever. I really, really like how nice it is. I'm playing Spotify typically when I'm not talking to you guys. But again, just for the safety and convenience, it's in the dash. It's a 6.8 inch screen. So it's not as big as the factory location, which kind of stinks. If I could do that, I would 100% do it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't think twice about it. And quite frankly, it would make me quite happy. We'll go into reviewing that again. That'll get its own video in part of like step 1 and how we're gonna make this truck a Lariat. And that head unit was a major part. Partially because we can add 3 cameras to it, which is a feature no 2016 250 or 350 had. So stay tuned. So now, what's my opinion of everything with the upgrades? You know, we went over the upgrades, which ones I liked, which ones didn't work out. But with the upgrades that we're keeping, which is right now, so airbags, intercooler pipe, the head unit, which I know the head unit isn't much for in the performance aspect, but as far as making this trip as nice as could be, it was a fundamental part. Anyway, the head unit worked really nicely and was a major part of making this all just work well. So, updated opinion of it. I absolutely love it. So as far as everything else with the truck, super comfortable. It's really quiet in the scheme of things, which makes towing super nice to have such a quiet ride while you're towing this distance. Again, it's not that I don't love the sound of other engines, it's just sometimes you don't want to listen to it when you're towing, especially something this heavy. It can be a bit of a pain, so it's very nice. My mom drove down with me. It was very comfortable for her, so she's not annoyed by the sound. She does not like the sound of the 6 liter, but you know, this whole, how well this all does, the 6-speed transmission, the exhaust brake, the transmission braking feature, all of it, just so nice. The ride quality, very good as well. I can't speak highly enough about how well I feel 2015 and newer 6.7s, the overall experiences. Because while it might not feel like it pulls as hard, it does still pull pretty hard, don't get me wrong. But it also never feels like it has to work super hard to do anything. So that's kind of a neat, like, I don't think it's a feature, but it's a neat part of the experience. If anyone's gone from towing with an older vehicle to this, there's times those older vehicles just always feel like they're working. And then you get something like this, and it just never feels like it's working hard to do the job. So it's really cool for how much I've towed that these newer vehicles, it really does feel very easy. So it makes the overall experience really, really good. And lastly, this is a big one. What modifications do we plan to make before we bring the camper back home? So I have a few things I need to address. First and foremost, I want my darn fuel tank. I got a 60-gallon fuel tank coming. So the guys, shout out to DSD. Give those guys a call. Let them know I sent you. Discount code, they'll apply it on any qualifying parts. Not every part it qualifies, but if it does, they will give you a discount for my referral. So go check them out. Huge shout out to those guys. Show them some support because they're certainly showing us support. And the more you guys do for them, the more they'll do for the channel. So go give them a check out. Airbags, intercooler pipes, fuel tank, any of that, hit them up. If you don't want to, I'll try to find some affiliate links for down below, but their information will be down below too. And I do ask you to please try to check them out. Free shipping on orders over $99. But fuel tank's the biggest one. Man, it just stinks when you're on short fuel and you're not sure if you're gonna, like, you have to stop at a place that's hard to get into or in and out of. You know, a big fuel tank makes life so much easier. And I'm really bummed I didn't have it. On the way down, it wasn't too bad. But on the way home, I did have a stop that there's just a stretch that was real bad, and it was awful getting in and out of it. I shouldn't say awful. I was able to do it fine. It was just super annoying. It was this tiny gas station. I had to back it up. I had to back the camper up out of there. 6-point turn later, we were back on the road. But a fuel tank is one of my top 3 6.7 modifications if you're towing. Now, the other thing I want to take care of is I want a tow tune that hopefully improves things. I'm looking for a tow tune that gives me better pulling power. Again, not that this is lacking. You don't need a tune for this truck towing at all. This is a want. It is not a need. But I would like to add an air filter. The goal is to get better fuel economy. This is a rough section I'm towing right now. I'm getting about 9 miles per gallon. That's terrible. I was getting 10 before. Now this is just, I will say, this is a rough spot. A lot of basically climbing the mountain here. But I'd like to be able to put the the air filter back on. I would like to be able to use the tune as well. So I am looking at emissions-friendly custom tuning for the truck to put the air filter back on, and then also to add the fuel tank. Those are my wants prior to towing this year, but hopefully bringing the camper back home for storage. It also gives me a really good chance to kind of review some of the other stuff for next year that I'm interested in. So it gives me a timeline that if I get the other upgrades done, which we'll talk about later, prior to the start of next season, it gives us some good information to work with going forward as far as how all that plans out. Anyway, guys, that is the tow review. Nothing groundbreaking here, just some good, solid upgrades. We're going to talk about airlift versus Firestone coming up soon. And we're going to talk about what happened with the SCT tow tune in the very near future. Stay tuned, guys. If you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. Give this video a big thumbs up. Drop those comments down below. What do you think of our very mild upgrades we did to the truck? And tell me what you guys want to see in the future, and I'll see you next time.